everyone, Chris here, and welcome to my channel. For today's 5 on Friday, I'm going to do my very first 5-star prediction wrap-up. So if you missed my 5-star prediction video, I will link it in the description below if you want to watch that first and see why I picked the books that I picked. As for everybody else, let's get started. So first up, we had Hollowpox by Jessica Townsend. This is the third book in the Nevermore series, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. It wasn't quite a 5-star for me, but very, very close. So if you've never read anything in the Nevermore series, we're following a girl named Morgan Crow, who in the first book is cursed to die on her 11th birthday until she is whisked to Nevermore by Jupiter North. From there, she settles into Nevermore, and we kind of follow her on her adventures. In the third book, we are dealing with an outbreak that is affecting the Wunimals in Nevermore. So Wunimals are animals that are like sentient and smart and are part of the community, and this disease is essentially turning them into Unimals, which are like wild animals. And the reason this book didn't get 5 stars for me is because it was just a little too close to home. Given everything that's happened in the world in the last year, I just wasn't really into reading a book that included essentially a pandemic. And so there was just some things that were too close to what we were experiencing in the real world. And so I had to knock it down a little bit. But I don't think anybody should hold that against the book. Obviously, Jessica Townsend had no idea what was going to be happening in the real world when she wrote this book. So I feel bad knocking it down 0.5 star. But for me, I can't give 5 stars to a book that I didn't completely enjoy. I could see myself potentially in the future giving this 5 stars on a reread when there is more distance between the events that are happening in the book and the events that had happened in the real world. But for now, it's 4.5 stars. I still loved it, and I can't wait to read the next book in the series. Next up is A Vow So Bold and Deadly by Bridget Kemmerer. This is the third and I believe final book in the Cursebreaker series. So this is basically a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I have really, really enjoyed the series, and this book got 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed how things kind of wrapped up in this book. My problem is that one of the main characters has never been my favorite. I've always had issues with them, and the issues for me personally continued into this book. And again, if I'm not completely enjoying a book, I cannot give it 5 stars, and this just made me have to knock it down a little bit because I would get annoyed when we were in their point of view, and I just really didn't like the way this character behaved, and it really bothered me. I kept hoping throughout the series we'd see growth, and in some ways we did, but in others we didn't, and there just wasn't enough growth for me. So I couldn't give this book the full 5 stars, but I still really, really enjoyed it. And while I think this is the last one, I'm not 100% positive, and if Bridget Kemmerer were to write more books in this series, in this world with these characters, I would definitely pick them up and check them out. So next up, we have Across the Green Grass Fields by Shauna Maguire. This is the 6th book in the Wayward Children series. In the Wayward Children series, we follow kids who find doors that lead them to other worlds, and we either get to see their adventures in these other worlds, or we get to see what life is like once they end up back in our world. And each of them can really... So I have a helper. Ellie wanted some camera time. Yeah, you gonna help? What were your thoughts on the book, huh? No, you don't have any thoughts? Okay. So each of these books can really be read on their own. They're kind of standalones, and you can really read them in any order. So in this book, we follow Reagan, who goes through a door with like unicorns and centaurs and other magical equines. In this world, when a human appears, it means something big is going to happen, and usually the human is there to be a hero. Reagan is found by a group of centaurs and begins to learn about and explore this new world. So I gave this book 3.75 stars. It is completely separate from the other books in this series. There are no crossover characters or anything like that, and this wasn't my favorite world or my favorite main character, so I didn't enjoy this book as much as the other books in the series. I'm pretty sure, though it has been a while since I've read the other books, that all of the other books have some sort of crossover or connection. And this one felt so completely separate outside of getting to see a character go through a door to another world. And like I said, this world wasn't my favorite, and the main character wasn't my favorite. And honestly, of all of them, I know they're all really short, but this one felt the most rushed to me. And I think I would have liked more time to spend in this world with this character, and I think I might have liked it more. So yeah, I really was expecting to like this book more. Though, even though it wasn't my favorite, I will still definitely continue on with the series because I love the premise of finding doors and going to worlds that kind of suit you better. Next up, we have The Relentless Moon by Mary Robinette Kowal. So this is the third book in the Lady Astronaut series. In this series, we're living in a world where a meteor hits the east coast of the Earth in like the early 1950s and just wipes out a giant chunk of the east coast. And scientists realize rather quickly that unless something drastic changes, eventually we're going to be unable to live on Earth. It's not going to be safe for us to live there. So the space program gets rapidly accelerated as scientists believe we're going to have to find homes off of Earth. And the character we follow is Elma York, and she is part of the team that is working to accelerate our space program. And eventually she wants to be one of the women that gets to go up and be a lady astronaut. In this book, however, we're following a different character. We are following a character we have read about in the first two books. She's like a side character, so she's not a completely new character. We know of her, but we're getting a completely different point of view. I ended up giving this book 3.75 stars, and I think that is part of why I did, because I didn't enjoy this character's point of view as much as I enjoyed Elma's point of view, and I was really looking forward to reading more about Elma's journey and what was going on with Elma after where we left her at the end of book 2. I would also like to point out that there was a polio outbreak during this book, and again, like with Hollowpox, there were too many similarities with the polio outbreak that reminded me of what was going on in real life, and I have definitely been reading to kind of escape some of the stresses that have been going on in real life, so I don't really want to read about it in my books. So I think it got knocked down a bit because of those similarities as well. Again, this is another book I would like to revisit when I've had a little bit of distance from our real world pandemic and see if I enjoy the book more when I'm not so sensitive to those issues. I did enjoy the book. I just definitely think there was a bit of timing, and I went into it not expecting to have switched POVs, and like I said, I didn't enjoy this POV as much as the POV from the first two books. And lastly, we have The Alice Network by Kate Quinn. So this is a historical fiction that has dual timelines. In one timeline, we're following Eve, who is a spy during World War I, and in the other timeline, we're following Charlie, who is trying to find her cousin in the aftermath of World War II. So I ended up giving this book 4 stars. So I had a few issues with this book. First off is Charlie gets Eve to help her try to find her cousin. That's who she contacts, and that's how we meet Eve. So we already know Eve's fate when we're reading her part of the story. And in her part of the story, there are 3 women who are kind of undercover that we learn about. And I thought it would have been so much more interesting if we had only had their undercover names, and we would have been wondering which of those 3 people was Eve, as opposed to knowing which one of them was Eve. And I think that took away from some of the intrigue in Eve's story. I would have enjoyed it more if I didn't already know what was going to happen to Eve, and obviously that she made it out. My other issue was the fact that I don't know as much about World War I. So for me, a lot of the stuff that was being talked about in Eve's portion of the book didn't always make sense to me, and I don't think, as somebody who doesn't know as much about World War I was given enough information to really understand the stakes and understand why the characters were doing some of the things they were doing, and some of the dangers they faced, because I am far less familiar with World War I than I am with World War II. So I wish that had just been a little bit more fleshed out and we had been given a little bit more information. Overall, though, I did really enjoy the story. And even though I didn't like knowing that Eve was the character in each of the timelines, it was still interesting to see how she ended up where she was. And I really enjoyed Charlie as a character and getting to see Charlie's development throughout the book. And that definitely brought this up, because I think without being attached to Charlie the way I was, it would have been a much lower rating. I do really enjoy Kate Quinn's writing, though, and I definitely plan to read more from her in the future. So those are my ratings for the 5 books that I thought I would give 5 stars to. Unfortunately, none of them actually got 5 stars this time around. I actually have a second round of 5-star predictions up on my channel. I will link that in the description below if you're curious as to what the next 5 books I guessed at are. Have you read any of the books that I mentioned in this video? If so, what rating did you give them? If you've made it this far in the video, leave me a star emoji. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!